somewhere you find that a look at this.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back to Daybreak on Trust TV, where we'll now take a look at the front pages of the national dailies this morning to find out the stories that are making the headlines. But before we do that, there's something that I know is very close to Sunday's heart, the fuel queues. They seem to be reducing a bit.
Well, since I got to one of the filling stations and saw that they were selling at 185, it appears the lines have been a little less.
Exactly.
In fact, I was very jittery this morning. On my way here, even though I had fuel, it had just dropped a bit, and I saw them selling. I had to branch to Totop. I don't want to be taken by surprise at all, but long may it continue.
Yeah, so it seems like unofficially the fuel price has been increased. Has been increased,
and therefore there is a bit of supply or availability, as the case may be.
Well, that's something that we should keep our eye on. Of course, the papers actually have that as well. Well, of course, charity begins at home. We begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The major headline, of course, talks about politics. VP slot, how Babachir's panel recommended Shetima, 10 others to Tinubu. And riders here that says Grace Bent subcommittee offered advisory on running mate campaign DG. Ex-SGF confirms chairing panel with distance self from recommendations. And of course, APC chair defends Muslim ticket, says APC will win Osun poll. That is the major headline on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And of course, there's a pictorial here of the fuel pump showing 185 naira per litre, just as we discussed, saying some fuel stations now officially sell petrol at 185 naira per litre in Abuja. We hope that saves a little bit of the situation when it comes to the availability of the product. Major petrol marketers dump fuel official rate sell for 185 naira in Abuja and Kano. Details of that story on page 22 of Daily Trust. Further down the page, how poor infrastructure, lack of facilities fuels students' protest in Taraba. Plateau, Irigwe, Fulani sign peace pact. And on page 20, police return 5 million naira to robbery victim in Plateau. And just under the masthead, I'm not leaving any assets for my children to inherit, says Buhari. That's quite an interesting one there. And talking about security, how kidnappers targeting ex-Governor Muaz's children killed nephew and abducted others. Details of that can be found on page 3. Aregbesola catches immigration officer extorting passport applicants in Lagos. That is a story on page 6 of the Daily Trust. For these and more stories, pick up the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Interesting there from the Minister of Interior. We hope other ministers would undertake these on-the-spot assessments to also see firsthand what is happening in their area of supervision. And I'm sure there will be so many more catches, if you like, of this kind of incidents. Moving on to the Nation's newspaper this morning. The major headline on the Nation newspaper here reads, Governors, Muslim ticket not against Christians. Akero Dolu Ganduje Masari dismisses fear as unfounded. Adamu, nothing to worry about. That is, I'm sure, in responding to the former SGF's letter to the APC presidential flag bearer. You have there a picture of efforts by strongly placed individuals to ensure that the Osun State election is rancor-free. We have in that frame the Oni of Ife and Bishop Kuka, among others, who are part of that peace committee, ensuring that everybody plays by the rule, especially come this Saturday ahead of the Osun election. Other headlines on the Nation newspaper above the name marks here, we have Dangote, only African on Bloomberg's top 100 rich list. Interesting, it does appear that he will remain on this list perpetually forever. 448, jostling for 28 governorship seats. NNPP, AAC, yet to send list. So that list would further swell as it appears. COVID-19 cases rise sharply in July. Buhari, I am leaving no inheritance for my children. That's an interesting one coming from the president. Osun 2022, Oyetola Adeleke orders sign peace accord. Peter Obi campaigns for Lasun in Osogbo. Islamic group, ex-students back Ogumbi. And below the major headlines there you have, you fixed lecturers' wages unilaterally, government tells ASU. Proposal will cost government 1.2 trillion. No agreement yet on the table. For details of that story, you pick up the Nation newspaper and go straight to page 4. 165 naira petrol pump price no longer realistic, says marketers. The details of that story is also on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nation's newspaper this morning.
All right, the next newspaper we're going to be looking at is the Punch newspaper, which carries this major headline on the front page of the Punch and is still keeping with the politics. It says, Muslim ticket, decision on Shetima final, says Tinubu's men. And of course, riders here that give more clarity to that. Downplay aggrieved members' defection, complaints over Muslim running mate. And ex-Lagos governor won't rescind his decision to please critics, says Adeyeye. And of course, those not pleased can vote for Obi Atiku. Others, says Adebayo Shitu. That is the main headline on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Right underneath that, Oshun Poll, Oyetola Adeleke, others sign peace pact. That is another headline on the front page of the Punch. And we did not pass Sharia law, says Lagos Assembly. That story can be found on page 20. Fleeing Kuje prison convict nabbed in Ogun. That story is on page 5. And asthmatic teenager, 2 siblings drown in Lagos flood. Now, that is quite a sad one indeed. Amotekun arrests 120, dodges question on Owo massacre. And Lagos Ibadan gridlock worsens, commuters knock government and contractor. Aregbesol's faction banks on court to sack Oyetola. That is in keeping with the Oshun elections. And on top of the masthead, Soyinka at 88. Scholars, others hold conversation online. And inflation, debt pushing Nigeria, others to brink, says IMF. Still talking about the economy, banks borrow 595.34 billion naira from CBN in 2 months. Details of that story can be found on page 22. Directors lobby ahead of screening for AGF job. And terrorists killed 14,500 and 5.5 million displaced, says ECOWAS. Now, that is quite an alarming figure. For details of this and more stories, kindly pick up the Punch newspaper this morning.
We move on now to the flagship, The Guardian newspaper, this morning with the major headline, Bottleneck worsens vehicles clearance and ease of business. Interesting. We have other riders there on the paper. Here we have hundreds of dealers, agents to be thrown out of business. Used cars from China, Europe, not captured on VIN systems. Dealers fear only Nigerian used vehicle will be in the market soon. Lexus, Mercedes, not included in new valuation system. Importers abandon older cars due to unreasonable duty. This is the major headline on the Guardian newspaper, and just below the name marks we have this statement coming from the party chairman of the APC. Muslim ticket is work of God, says Adamu as Ganduje tackles SGF. And next to it we have Obi condemns Tinubu's Labour Party obedience with Labour till death statement. You'll find that story on page 5. We also have pictures there done in the front pages of, bottleneck yesterday on the Lagos road around the NNPC facility yesterday. And we have other stories right there on the Guardian newspaper. 90% of technologies powering Nigerian economy imported. This is according to NOTAB. NOTAB is the agency that regulates these activities. Muslim tickets will plunge Nigeria into chaos. Kaduna PFN warns. That story is on page 9. Kuka profiles solutions to voter apathy as Oshun Guba gladiators sign peace accord. That story is on page 3. 165 petrol price no longer realistic, says major marketers. You'll find that story also on page 3. These are the major headlines on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, the next paper we're looking at is This Day newspaper, which carries this major headline in keeping with what we've seen in other pages. Adamu, Christians have nothing to fear. Muslim ticket reflects Nigeria's reality. That is the major headline on the front page of This Day newspaper, and it comes with riders. Says it's an act of God. Faith aside, work stops on president's table, Akeredolu maintains. APC presidential combination stands rejected, PFN insists. Those are the riders underneath the major headline on the front page of This Day newspaper. Ganduje replies, Lawal says no compulsion in religion. And Masari declares security under Buhari has improved. Another rider here that says, Emir of Daura to President, your critics will criticize your successor. I'm bequeathing education values to my kids, Commander-in-Chief explains. Another headline on the front page of This Day newspaper reads, 1.12 trillion naira needed to pay proposed ASU varsity workers' wage increase, FG reveals. Details of that story can be found on page 6. Atiku Okowa PDP governors storm Oshogbo today for Adeleke, and that is another story on the front page of This Day newspaper. UN, Nigeria not on track to attaining sustainable development goals. For details, that's on page 5. And Moman advocates gradual removal of petrol subsidy to minimize resultant shock. And the rider here that says insists policy not sustainable, killing businesses. Well, these are the major headlines on the front page of This Day newspaper this morning.
And moving on now to News Direct. And on the News Direct major headline, 2 days to Osun Guba election, political parties hire thugs, seek spiritual backing. Peace accord risks ill faith. Gunshots saturate concentrated areas. Increased patronage for traditionalists as politicians seek supernatural powers. Amazing twist to developments ahead of the Osun election. You will recall that Osun is the home of a lot of traditional activities with major festivals in that regard. Apparently, people are now seeking some kind of protections under these arrangements. And we also have right above the name marks there, IG bans use of spy number plates nationwide. Prison attack, Aregbe Shola charges Controller General to double efforts on intelligence gathering. Interesting. Board composition of BEDC, 4 others legal. That's according to the federal government. And below the major headlines there, we have Kwankwaso NNPP, AAC, yet to submit any nomination of governorship state assembly candidates to INEC, according to officials. Pantami unveils book at Emerging Technologies Forum. You find that story on page 2. And again, according to petroleum major marketers, 165 naira petrol pump price no longer realistic. These are the major headlines on the front page of News Direct this morning.
Next, we'll take a look at the Leadership newspaper, which carries the major headline, which is not surprising from what we have seen so far. Muslim ticket, you have nothing to fear, APC assures Christians. That is the major headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, and it comes with riders here. It's an act of God, says Adamu. Ignore religion, vote competence, Akeredolu tells Nigerians. And Tinubu's wife will be unofficial Christian VP, says Masari. That is the major headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Other headlines here, IGP bans use of spy number plates nationwide. Police arrest fleeing Kuje prison escapee in Ogun. And still talking politics, Atiku PDP governors for Osun mega rally today. Now, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. But still keeping with that, on top of the masthead, price adjustment will end fuel scarcity, says marketers. And UK, Nigeria-born Kemi Benedok among top 6 contenders for Boris Johnson's job. That is quite interesting. Another one here that says Uzodinma's $783,000 wristwatch can build state-of-the-art hospital and roads. Details of that story can be found on page 7 of the Leadership. Well, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning.
Interesting perspective there from the front pages. I like the unofficial VP catchphrase there by Masari. I think it's the second time that is coming to the fore after former governor of Abia State, Ojo Kalu. Also said, interesting things you hear from these politicians every time they have to get out of a tight corner. They have a way of coming up with some very interesting catchphrase. At this point, we will take the major analysis on the paper after this short break. Our analyst will be joining us in the studio to give us more perspective. Please stay with us.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
But in a situation where you find that a party look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Welcome back from that short break. We are now being joined now by Mr. Salmon Salami, the Media Director, Justice Pen Alliance, for the details of the various, or rather for the analysis of the various headlines on the front page of our newspapers this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed you were shaking your head every time we mentioned some of those funny things on your newspaper review. I'm sure a lot of them must have come to you with some level of amazement. But starting with the VP slots, today the Daily Toast is revealing that Babachir was part of a committee that recommended the choice of a VP slot. But coming out again to write the things he did to the presidential flag bearer, what do you make of what is playing out after the choice of Shettima?
Oh, thank you very, very much. Interesting times are here. And I think doctors will not have much work to do because what we are seeing now is not only therapeutic, it is exciting. You see, the Muslim ticket has continued to be the issue. I do not think that it should be. Why shouldn't politicians and the political parties will give us what they consider their best, taking into consideration what they think will give them victory at the polls. If, as they have done, as APC has done, giving Nigerians Muslim ticket, and the PDP has given Nigerians Muslim Christian tickets, and other parties too have done their own. What is for us to do is what and who do we think we like? Yours is just to go and vote what you believe is the best for you. But let me clearly make a point. I do not think that Nigerians should bother themselves too much about the religion our politicians profess. The situation we are in today, those who put us in this situation, were they not Muslims? Were they not Christians? Where was the Bible? Where was the Quran? When they were doing what they did to put us in this mess. Well, Politicians and the political parties essentially want to win elections, and they will always do what they think and take the decision that they think is in their best interest that will guarantee them success or victory at the polls. Muslim ticket is not a new thing in this country, even though times have changed.
Yeah.
Even though personalities are not the same. I will not go into the merits and demerits of Muslim ticket or Christian Muslim ticket. It's for Nigerians to decide. But if I may say, I think it is time we de-emphasize the issue of religion in politics. Let us rather talk more of competence. Let's talk more of who has the real idea of what the issues are. But even at that, religion, whether we like it or not, will continue to be part of the issues.
Well, it being part of the issues is actually not the problem, but it being the main issue, that is the problem. Because right now we're not even talking about competence, we're not talking about any other issue apart from one party having a Muslim ticket, and it's everywhere and everybody is talking about it. What about other issues? What about other parties? I mean, like, it's simple, just like you said. Isn't it simple for us to just say, if you don't like it, you go out and vote for somebody else? And why is it dominating this discourse? So what I'm saying is, in your opinion, do you think that this so much attention being paid to this Muslim ticket of one party actually deviates attention from the main issues on ground? Because we haven't even started talking about any other issue apart from this.
It's unhelpful. It is unhelpful. Unhelpful in the sense that what is at stake is much more than the religion the politician profess. How will the religion of a politician put food on the table? How will it ensure infrastructure? How will it tackle the insecurity problem that we have now? I think the tragedy of the country is that politics in Nigeria is not issue-driven. It is not issue-driven. If it were, we should not even bother about the religion somebody profess. It is his own personal thing between him and his creator. And we are just being hypocritical. If truly we love God the way we now claim to, why are we where we are today? Tell me which religion teaches that you should kill. Tell me which religion teaches that you should embezzle. Tell me which religion that tells you that you should not see public office as public trust that should not be abused. Like I pointed out earlier, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It is convenient for them to talk about religion. It is self-serving. Nigerians know who they will vote. And I'm even looking forward to a situation whereby we will have Christian ticket, and it will not make any, it will not raise any issue. Let us emphasize competence. Let us emphasize patriotism. Let us emphasize those issues that unite us. We should not allow religion to divide us. We have been living together in this country. And in any case, this is just one of the ways the elite, political elite, divide Nigerians. If one of them is having a ceremony, you see Christians there. You see Muslims there. In fact, the Muslims may not even go and say their salah at the appropriate time. Where was the Quran? Where was the Bible that time? It is class thing, and they are using it to divide Nigerians. It is only the downtrodden masses who do not know that there is no difference between a poor man in Sokoto and a poor man in Maiduguri, they are united by poverty. And the major issue is who will help us in such a manner as to take care of the welfare and well-being of the downtrodden masses by providing jobs. You saw it while we were watching the news. Graduates taking up menial jobs. Fine, I agree, there's dignity in labor, but it could be better. All I'm saying, honestly, is this. The emphasis should not be on Muslim ticket, region, ethnicity. Rather, it should be on how do we move this country forward.
Interesting perspective there from Mr. Salmon. And again speaks to the fact that even among the elite, we need to turn down a bit. One of the papers captured the comment of Shitu, former minister, saying, if you don't like it, you go and vote for somebody else. That's a former minister and a party leader in a part of this country. You would think that by this time we should be offering, very compelling argument as that of our analyst in the studio on why people should look beyond religion and look to competency and the programs that these people have to offer. Moving on, we would now be, I'm sure you have also had cause to buy fuel in the last 2 days. You have seen the development around. I think we have got to a point where people are no longer waiting for regulatory agencies. Rather than kill us with the policy that is impossible to implement, we are now going to sell at 185 naira. If this is the only condition under which you can make this product available, and they seem to have been filed in the last 3 days. What do you think this means for us as a country?
It is really, really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that we are where we are today. Does it not really bother you that up till now, the refineries are not working? That a country that is this blessed, yet we do not have, it's like sitting beside the Atlantic Ocean, and yet you do not have water to birth. For how long shall we bemoan our fate? To me, I do not think that the fault is in our stars. It is not in our stars. It's in ourselves for being what we are today. We have mismanaged and mortgaged the future of the next generation. And this is sad. When as of today, I think it is $100 per barrel, yet we are not making any useful
gains from
it. Rather, it is pains, and pains. And I want to believe that when the right thing is done, which I believe they know what the right thing is.
But, do they know what the right thing is?
They do, more than
for
we
these
do.
years, and we are unable to implement.
No. You see, it is one thing to know the right thing. It's another thing to be willing to do the right thing. In fact, the question is this. If I do the right thing, in whose favor? As it is. They are taking advantage of the common man. And it is in their interest that the status quo remains. Otherwise, just tell me, why is it that we cannot fix the refineries? Turn around. In fact, I don't know where we are turning to now. We have turned around, and up till now we are still turning. Yet, there's nothing to show for it. Honestly, I do not think that our leaders wish us well. They may claim to. I don't think in actual fact they do. Otherwise, we should not be where we are today.
Well, many people actually are of the opinion that when it comes to this fuel issue, that total and complete deregulation of the sector, allowing market forces to determine how much fuel is actually sold, would bring an end to all this issue of supply and availability of the products. What's your opinion on that?
Total deregulation. It is almost certain now that It is no more sustainable. This subsidy thing. It's not sustainable. But the issue is not so much so in subsidy, no subsidy. The issue is in the sincerity of our leaders. Even if the money is now available, will they use the money to do the right thing? Will they? But I still think that if they are sincere with Nigerians, we understand and appreciate the need for the subsidy to be removed. But then, I do not think it is right and proper to leave the common man to the whims and caprices of the so-called demand and supply. Something should hold. Something should hold.
Something should hold there by Mr. Salman. We move on to politics. This time around from the major headline of News Direct, and a very concerning headline there from the News Direct major headline there. It reads, 2 days to Oshunguba election, political parties hire talk and seek spiritual backing, you know, despite the peace accords that were signed by these people. We saw the incident in Ekiti, well, maybe relatively peaceful, but overshadowed by vote buying. This time around, we are drifting in a path that seems very dangerous. We know what talks bring to an election and peaceful gathering. It's nothing peaceful. Are you worried by these revelations?
Very much worried. There is no objective-minded Nigerian that will not be worried. I'm very much worried. Vote buying and electoral violence. Violence during election. But the interesting thing is this. For how long shall they do this to our people? Violence. Have you seen their children in forefront of this violence? All their children, they are in US, they are in UK. With all due respect, one of the governors was in UK.
The graduation.
For the graduation of his son. The son had LLB from Exeter University. Our own children are out. They are on the street. Up till today. You see, it is now time for us to open our eyes. The downtrodden masses, they have more than enough problem to handle. I do not think the children of the poor or the middle class should lend themselves to this violent thing. Whoever calls you that you should go and kill, maim, and cause havoc, tell him that even if I have to do it, your son must lead. And you too should follow us. Then I will know that you mean well. They will not do that. They will not do that. And unfortunately, I've always been saying it that democracy in the mold of the West, the way it is practiced in the West, will never germinate and produce the kind of result we want in this country. Why did I say so? When you transplant apple from UK and plant it in Jos, but even if at all it brings forth fruit, taste it. It can never be like the one brought from UK. What I'm saying is this. Let us domesticate things. Let us adapt it to suit our own peculiarity. Because of all democracies, the first democracy is the democracy of the belly. Until the government does what it's supposed to do, that is providing the basic needs. Me are telling people, don't sell your PVC, the man will sell his own, we sell the wife's own, we sell the children's own. Why? The landlord is at his neck. He doesn't know when the next where and when the next food will come. He has not paid school fees. Health problem is there. Let us gratify all these needs first. When we take, democracy presupposes that some things have been taken care of. You'll be crazy to take a loaf of bread to somebody in UK or in US that, please, I want you to vote for me. And why you should vote for me is this, get this 2,000. He will look at you as being crazy. But here, if you give somebody 2,000, of course, we even mobilize people to come and take more. So, but the issue is this. The issue is this. It should not be like this. It should not be like this. I think the government should help.
But
the government should help.
And unfortunately, we do find ourselves in this particular situation. And going by previous elections that we've seen, the one in Ekiti was dominated by something like this. Do you think actually vote buying, this issue of vote buying, let's not talk about violence now because we're lucky enough not to see any sort of that. The issue of vote buying now, how much impact do you think it will have going into the general elections next year?
Well, you see, like I always tell you that nothing compares to an hungry man. Somebody is hungry, the first thing he wants to hear is food. And voter, INEC has a lot to do. But even the political parties, because the political parties are even the beneficiary, there is the need for voter education. Let people realize that no matter how hard it is, taking 2,000 in lieu of voting for somebody you know that will deliver the dividends of democracy is not the way to go. I know things are hard, but selling votes is not the answer to it. It's not the answer to it. It's not, and it cannot be the answer. The answer is, please vote your conscience, vote competence, vote the man that you know has the milk of human kindness. Whether you like it or not, President Muhammadu Buhari loves Nigeria. You may say anything about him. Nobody can accuse this man of being a thief. He is not. He's voted in not because of anything, but because he's perceived as a man imbued with integrity. We may not appreciate him now. We may take this for granted. Later in life, we will now know that God blessed us with this man. But the question is this, and it's a paradox. I always warn myself that if I even say, like I believe, that Baba Buhari is honest, means well for this country, if a vehicle had an accident, how will you now say that the fault is with the conductors and not the driver? That is for all of us to think about.
Amazing, what would I call it now? Words of wisdom there for us to chew. But quickly, I would like to catch your thought as we wind down on the newspaper analysis this morning. Aregbesola has been touring some of the prison facilities. He stumbled on passport racketeering on one of them. He's been calling for the CG to improve intelligence. I'm wondering if the intelligence gathering should actually rest with the CG of immigration or rest with the police and the soldiers. But in the face of what has happened to Kuje, is it just enough to tour these places and come up with this rhetoric? Shouldn't we be seeing real practical actions in place? Are we not supposed to then take this and the several other prison breaks that have happened in the last 2 years as a catalyst to start changing the security architecture of our major prisons around the country? What's your thought on this?
It's unfortunate that Ogbeni has found himself in this type of situation. Ogbeni knows exactly what he wants to achieve. Aregbesola, like Baba Buhari, is a no-nonsense man. He knows what to do, and perhaps is doing it. But the fact still remains that there is the need to rework the security architecture of the country. It is failing. It has failed. It amuses me to no end that the so-called ragtag Boko Haram bandits will come to Kuje and they will spend 3-4 hours without any from the security there. Is it not surprising? They did all they wanted to do. They took their time. They were not in a hurry. They even ransacked and freed their people. They had an agenda. They planned. You can't tell me that they just came the other day. They must have been surveying the place. There must have been surveillance. They planned it. They carried it out with precision. And Where is their NIA? What of DSS? Or is it as they claim that they supplied the intelligence? Why was it not worked on? But the problem is this. Next, there is no consequence. When you know that for dereliction of duty there will be consequence, you will sit up.
Interesting perspective there from our major guest paper analyst this morning, Mr. Salman Salami, who has given us deep insight, varied insight, if you like, to the issues dominating the front page of our newspapers this morning. We wish time would permit us to continue to keep him in the studio, but we have to move on at this point. Thank you very much for coming and offering us those insights. We hope that when next we call, you'll find time to make it to the studio and share your thoughts with Nigeria once again.
It's a pleasure being here.
It's my pleasure too.
You are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very much. We will take a short break at this point. When we return, the show continues. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that